Hey everyone, welcome to Houston. We have a problem. Holy smokes, we're on our 30-second live stream. This is nuts. Welcome. Thanks so much for coming. And remember to turn this intro off so that when I go back to big screen, it doesn't come on. There we go. All right. Oh goodness, there's already super chats before I even arrived. Moniel asks, "What do you think of Ryan Cohen tweets? Are times of posting really coded financial regulations, or he just laughs at apish interpretations?" I bet both. Sometimes he's like, what kind of weird thing can I get out there and see what they come up with. Other times I think he's actually doing some coded messages. He's definitely a weird one. And I think he loves puzzles, which is the entire reason why he's into GameStop. And Eve Doster, "Hey Houston, what do you call a wandering caveman? A Neanderthal?" Boo. Thank you. So things we're going to talk about today. Blue chips and the SPY and banks all pretty much took hits all week. That is indicative that, things are on the precipice. We have JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, who else? It was Goldman Sachs also said, like, hey, get ready for a correction. So these big banks that are saying things aren't going to be running so smoothly in the near future. Prepare yourselves. And then we also have, the indications of banks like Bank of America having to take out over $100 billion in bonds. We've got Wells Fargo restricting credit, consumer credit, so you can't get car loans, home equity loans, personal lines of credit. They limited like 5 of their 7 credit card offers. So, we have a contraction of sorts happening in the banking sector. And the other thing is, it was revealed this week that Metamaterials stocks, all the stocks related to Metamaterial with their merger, have been trading really weird. So we have the QSIP change didn't happen for all the shares. So Torchlight shares were still trading. We've got weird instances where the preferred shares are getting assigned values. I got sent stuff last night showing that the Torchlight preferred shares got turned into Metamaterials A preferred shares and were given an assigned value of $33 each. I don't know how or what or why or where that came from, but the guy tried selling it this morning and then was told he wasn't allowed to sell them. So they have some weird value assigned to them, but they're still acting like those preferred shares you can't sell. And Metamaterials finally finished filing their paperwork. I guess they had like 71 days after the merger to finish filing paperwork for the merger, and that all went in. So we have no idea what the T35s are on all of that. And what else is happening in the week? Afghanistan's a shit show. We know that. Yeah, the Delta variant's still going bonkers. Hospitals are full. I don't know if that's going to mean shutdowns. I get the feeling from the Biden administration that they're kind of being a little callous in that they're like, hey, get vaccinated. If you aren't, you get what's coming to you, but we're going to keep operating the way we're operating, which isn't necessarily the best way to stop a pandemic. So I'm wondering if hospitals are going to get so full in the next month that we'll have no choice but to restrict commerce and people's actions, because full hospitals mean everyone else starts hurting, because you get in a car accident, you fall off a ladder, you have a heart attack, you won't have ambulances, you won't have beds available at the hospital, and so excess deaths for everyone else seem to go up in those situations. So the entire point of the vaccine was to reduce the number of people going to hospitals, but we have so many people that aren't vaccinated that hospitals are filling up all over the U.S. So we may see some sort of action from the government if this gets too bonkers in the near future. Okay, there was another chat that came in from Nick Callis. "You predicted new laws would be passed to prevent future MOASS and that Citadel would offshore money. Both occurred." Spooky. Well, that's what they do is if you're basically committing a whole bunch of crimes and you're getting a lot of cash, you can't keep that cash in the U.S. You got to get it out of the U.S. into accounts offshore. These banking havens, in the Caymans and Bahamas and British Virgin Islands and Aruba and stuff like that, that's what they're for. That's their entire business model is, hey, we'll take your cash, mum's the word, and, those banks have so much cash in them, and I'm not really even sure what they do. Like, do they give interest or do they take interest when you put money? I don't know. I've never actually dealt with an offshore bank because I don't really hear about them offering home loans and car loans and credit card offers and things like that. So I don't really know what they're doing with that cash other than maybe they're just investing it into stocks and bonds. So, yeah. Remedy asks, Houston, what brokerage do you use? To trade, I've got Schwab, Fidelity, and I still play with Robinhood using their options trading because it's just quick and easy. And then I also have an Acorns account and Vanguard. So my Vanguard is just their index funds. That's like, put in $200 a month retirement. Acorns just rounds up on every transaction I do with my debit or credit cards and dumps a little bit of cash in there. So I've got those steady retirement funds growing, but I do most of my trading on Schwab and Fidelity. And Fidelity I use mostly for not quite penny stocks, but legit stocks on exchanges and some OTC. And Schwab I use for all of my weird penny stocks that Fidelity won't let me buy. So I've got all sorts of weird little things that are at 0.4 of a penny and go to 0.5 of a penny, and I sell and then I buy some more. So I do weird things like that with Schwab. Schwab is the only one that let me buy Sears holdings. So I've got my Sears holdings in there, as well as my experiment with was it Black Dragon, the company that's offering a NFT dividend on the 30th, I believe. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, what else would you folks like to hear about today? Barf Boo. What are your thoughts on a potential MetaMaT squeeze still happening? It just seems to get shorted more and more every day now with no end in sight. I think you're right. They're still just shorting it. I'm not seeing anybody cover, any evidence of people covering, and so far no forced buying is happening. So I just I picked up 20 more options for October because they were really cheap because the price keeps going down, with the hope that it's a lotto ticket for me. I mean, I would like to make $200,000 off those options. That'd be fantastic for only spending $100 or $200, whatever it was I spent. So I'm holding out in that lotto ticket. They are a long-term play for me though. So I have them because they're projected to be a $10 billion a year company soon, as all these high-tech firms are going to need their nano and meta technology. RN Blue, what does it mean when the reverse repo is above 1 trillion for a week? Will it cause anything in the next few weeks? Well, there seems to be a couple kinds of reverse repos. There are banks that park their money overnight, and then there are banks that do more longer play that might be a month or more. And if a bank is putting their money in with the Fed and getting a whole bunch of these bonds back, then they run the risk in the next month of the U.S. failing in its duty to raise the debt ceiling, and we take a credit hit, or perhaps even worse, default on some of our interest payments on those bonds, then the value of those bonds plummet. And the banks can lose out on a significant portion, let's say 30% on their on what they paid for those bonds. So, I think right now participating in the reverse repo market might be a bit risky. Hey, buddy, your collar is really loud when you do that. I'll scratch it for you. There you go. Yeah. Okay. So I have the feeling that we may see some tapering in the reverse repo over the next month or so, simply because the risk involved and the banks are going to need cash. This cash that's seen as a liability right now might be seen as necessary if everything goes south, which is very much the possibility here in the next few weeks with COVID, corporate debt, housing uncertainty, commercial real estate, rentals plummeting, debt ceiling, MOASS. There's a lot of obligations out there that need to be taken care of, that they may need that cash on hand to do it. Okay, Salty Dog 05 says, check out the Rezvani Tank Truck Military Edition. You will not regret it. Rezvani Tank Truck Military. Rezvani Tank Truck Military Edition. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to do is I forgot to... oh, this thing. Looks like a big giant FJ Cruiser with more muscle to it. Oh, shoot. I forgot to do this thing. Scene. Got to go to Chrome. Doink. Turn off the calculator. Oh, I forgot to sign the Chrome. Dang it. Double click you. Go like that. Go to... There it is. All right. Haha. This thing. There. That's pretty badass. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars does this thing cost? Probably that's MOASS money left to buy one of these for me. That thing is huge. There you go. Carry your lumber around in that one. Yeah. All right, Salty Dog. That's something to look forward to when I finally have the cash available to buy a new truck. Fabian Garcia, Houston, is it true AMC and GME are not negative beta and will go down with the market if the market takes a plunge? Not as far as I could see. Everything about them has been negative beta. Every let's see here. Beta GME. Yeah, beta is negative 208 for GameStop, and AMC oh, beta on AMC is positive at the moment, 1.31. So it's still negative for GameStop. Right now it's positive on AMC. So I guess it's half right at the moment. But AMC's been, a little sideways. Well, both of them have been a little sideways as of the last few weeks. So that's a good question, though. Yeah, because before AMC was very negative, and right now it's positive 131, meaning it's going up a little bit more every time the market goes up. But GameStop's still very negative. It's losing twice as much, or it does twice as opposite as what the market does. But thank you for super chat. That's something to keep an eye on. I wonder when, if anyone knows, can do a quick search and see when AMC went positive beta. That would be very handy. Totally not the FBI super chats. Can you talk about how Moderna and Pfizer aren't vaccines? Johnson & Johnson, the only technical vaccine. Moderna and Pfizer are actually gene therapy treatments. Okay, so I can see how you might want to call it a gene therapy treatment. What they are doing is they're eliciting an immune response, just like any other vaccine. So Johnson & Johnson is typical protein vaccine. Same thing with AstraZeneca and was it Nova and Janssen, and I can't remember all the other ones. So those are, you take little samples of the virus that are like little facsimiles, little not live ones, and you inject them in there, and your body goes, "This is foreign, I hate you," and they attack. And then they remember what that thing looks like, and so when your body gets infected later, it goes into an action to stop those things. The mRNA vaccines, the Moderna and Pfizer ones, so the virus itself is made up of RNA, and the RNA is essentially, think of it as like half a DNA. So DNA is this helix that it looks like a big giant twisty ladder, and this is only half of it. So it's got only like one side of the rungs of that ladder. And the cell itself has this little doohickey that hangs down called a spike protein. And that spike protein is what attaches to your ACE2 receptors in your body, in your nose, throat, lungs, heart, anywhere else ACE2 receptors may be. And they basically zombify the cell. When they attach, they allow that virus to zombify the cell and start replicating itself. So it takes those cells that might have a function of, hey, let's process oxygen, or let's make mucus, or let's make the heart muscle pump, and it turns those cells into, you're not going to do that anymore. You're now going to make more of me. So it turns them into little factories, and they start pumping out more of the virus that then attaches to more cells and pumps out more of the virus. So what they did was they genetically modified this spike protein without the rest of the cell involved, and that's what's in the mRNA vaccines. And they inject that into you, and the spike protein attaches to ACE2 receptors in the cells in your arm and say, hey, make more of these spike proteins. And so it starts making more of those spike proteins, and then your body goes, no, stop that. And it elicits an antibody response from your immune system and attacks them and takes care of them. And then you get a booster shot, a month later, do it again. Your body's like, I know that I'm ready for this one. Let's do it. And they just kick the crap out of it. And now you've got an immune response to that spike protein. So when it sees something that looks like the little spike protein that wants to start replicating stuff, then it starts acting on it. So it's like, might not have a picture of the villain, at the post office to see the most wanted thing, but it might say like, hey, whenever you see a scar over this eye, go to war. And so it's like looking for anything with scars over its eye, that type of thing. With all of these vaccines, essentially you still get infected. Like if you are in somewhere where the Delta variant is or another variant, you're going to get it into your nose, your eyes, your mouth, and those things will attach to your cells, but your immune response should be much quicker so that it doesn't go down into your throat and into your lungs and your bloodstream. So the idea is that your body attacks this stuff much sooner than it would naturally when if you're unvaccinated, it gets in your nose and mouth and then goes into your lungs and starts doing some stuff, and your body is still trying to figure out what's going on by the time it's spread throughout your system and gets overwhelmed. And if you have like a crazy powerful immune system, your body might produce these cytokines, which are antibodies against it, and produce too many of them. And so a lot of younger folks have problems with like producing so many cytokines it floods their lungs, and basically they can have seizures or heart attacks, all sorts of crazy stuff. So this sort of tempers the immune response and makes it much more direct and active against the infection when it enters your body. That's why 95% of people don't even notice symptoms when if they've been vaccinated. And the breakthrough cases are largely folks that have immune problems to begin with, so that they didn't get much of an immune response when they got injected with one of the vaccines. Hope that helps. Okay, Andrew, can you give me a thesis for why GME is better buy than AMC? Convince me to sell my AMC and buy GME. Is there DD on number of GME synthetics? I have both. I am more heavily invested in GME. But the way I see it with GME is that they have cash on hand and they can offer a dividend. Their board seems to be much more hell-bent on destroying short hedge funds. Like that seems to be definitely on their minds. They're doing crazy things and planning for the future in a way that expands their business footprint, gets them into online commerce, makes them much more of an entertainment company, branching out products. They're really diversifying a lot. And there's only 73 million shares total in existence, a 50 million or less float. And so it's a much more exclusive stock. Now, I don't know necessarily the ratio of shorts with AMC, but it's probably in the billions. But there is 500 million shares in the float. So it's going to it isn't as scarce as GameStop is. Plus, the evidence over the last 8 months is that the board at AMC isn't necessarily like, they aren't doing things to mess with the short hedge funds. They seem to be helping them. They dumped 300 million shares during the initial baby squeeze. They dumped 11 million more when the stock was spiking at $70. And when GME sold stock to get out to pay off their bonds, they did it really slowly over weeks or months. So they might be like, oh, we're going to sell 3 million shares, but it took them 5 weeks to do it. And they just sold a few here, a few there, a few here. And AMC just dumped 11 million shares into the pockets of a whole bunch of short hedge funds and absolutely killed the buy pressure. And the stock price went from $72 and just plummeted from there. Hopefully they're learning from their mistakes, but they seem to be making these mistakes over and over. Adam Aron seems like a really personable dude. He's very accessible, but he just doesn't feel to me like he's got these shareholders in mind, that he's much more old school, high-fiving white guys from business school, and that he's got buddies all over the place that work for all sorts of different companies and hedge funds and whatnot. And he seems to care more about his golf buddies than he does necessarily about AMC stock price in a short squeeze. That's kind of how I see it. Whereas Ryan Cohen seems much more, I don't care. I want this to be epic. And that's what he's kind of working for. I think both of them are going to squeeze. Both of them are going to have ridiculous prices. But GameStop's going to go bonkers in a way that no one's ever seen a stock go bonkers. That's my personal belief. Barry O, how long do you think the Icelandic volcano event will happen? I haven't seen the Iceland volcano. So I can never say Icelandic words. Gelgidere, Gelding I've been to Iceland. I can't say a single Icelandic word. So this sucker's a pyroclastic eruption. These things. Oh no, sorry, it's not pyroclastic. It's a oozy lava. It's basalt. So so it's got a new crater forming. This is from the Grapevine. I had a friend that interned at the Grapevine. She had the most fun of her entire life there. Geldingdeler. That's how we say. Oh, I forgot to put. Boom. There we go. So we got a nice Pohoihoi lava flow happening here. That's Pohoihoi is when it's like flowing nice and smooth, and then there's which is when it makes this like looks like crumbly hot gravel that's kind of just churning over itself. They're both Hawaiian words. Is kind of onomatopoeia because it's the sound you make when you walk on it barefoot. Go and then Pohoihoi is smooth lava. Looks much more like a tarmac when it's done. So this looks like a rift zone. So you can see got a couple of pu'us here, a couple of volcanic vents, but they're all in a line. And so you got a little split in the rift, and you have lots of hot lava. So I don't know how big the magma chamber is, but usually flows like this can last a few weeks. Very rarely are they like Kilauea, where they've been going since like 1983. Those are essentially flood basalts at that point. 11 and 12 cubic meters per second. Yeah, here it says it's total guesswork as one will stop, because I think they don't have any idea of how much magma is in that chamber. With volcanoes like this, what can happen sometimes is you have this rift zone going, and there's a magma chamber, and it's going nuts, and then somewhere underground a new crack may form, and the lava may all of a sudden just drain from that chamber, and the whole thing will shut off and then spit out somewhere else downhill. That happens a lot. That happens quite frequently with Kilauea itself. But yeah, it's cool. I'd love to go see it, but I'm stuck here. So my guess is probably a few weeks. That's usually how long it takes these magma chambers to quiet down. Okay, Matt Everett super chats. I thought to myself, it's Friday at 5:30 Eastern time. Houston has to be live. Weekend soda, me from Maryland. Question: do you think GME will crash more before MOASS? Ooh, I mean, it's been kind of just hovering in that 150 zone for a couple weeks now. If it does crash down, my guess is because they'll be pushing so much more sales through the dark pools, but it sounds like they may not have that option to them in the near future. Chatter I hear is that the SEC may turn off the dark pools for a period of time just to see what happens. So we might not see a big crash in price on GME. This might be the crash that we're in. I can't see it dropping more, especially if their earnings are coming up. Is it September 9th is when their earnings? We'll probably see them short it really hard on the day of their earnings report. That'd be my guess. That's what's happened each time, is that they just dump shares into the market the day of their earnings. And so, if the earnings are bad, they'll say, oh, it went down because the earnings are bad. GameStop is over. They're kaput. They're done. And if it goes well, they'll just short it like crazy and say, oh, the earnings didn't matter. People are still getting out of this stock, even though they're not. That'd be my guess. Josh Pet Pals, Tennessee. Hey, Houston, if you could visit any star or any solar system, where would you go? Oh, man. I would love to be close to something like, the Pillars of Creation, or one of these giant stellar nurseries with the huge trillion-mile clouds. Let's see here. Oh, put this back up here. So I'd love to be able to see this stuff up close. A lot of it is in multiple wavelengths, so they're combining, infrared, visible, UV, and they're combining all these images. So what you're seeing is actually stuff that the human eye cannot perceive. But I would love to be able to see this stuff up close. It'd be crazy, just how massive. I mean, these things are. You've got thousands of stars forming in here and thousands of star systems. So the scale of these clouds are just absolutely bonkers. They're not like, Earth would be a tiny little dot in here that'd be so insignificant compared to this cloud. These things are nuts. Although I would love the opportunity to see like an Earth-like planet in an alien world. We found quite a few. The Kepler telescope. Let's see here. Kepler, Earth-like planets. I can't remember how many. They keep finding more. So, this is from April last year. So they found Earth-sized habitable zone planet found around which star? Tell me what star you're in. Star system. Not even telling me what star system you're in. No, it's only 1.06 times the size of the Earth, so really close. But they don't list the star at all. They found probably a couple thousand of these now. They make these little press releases every time they do it. But what we're looking for is the James Webb Telescope finally going up, because the James Webb Telescope will be able to probably resolve a planet like this if it's within a couple thousand light years, and be able to measure the atmosphere. So they could tell if it was like an oxygen or nitrogen rich atmosphere or carbon dioxide rich, and that technology will be just bonkers for for future space exploration. When we start trying to go interplanetary, we can be like, hey, that one's got an oxygen atmosphere. Let's go there and check out that star system. So I would love to be able to visit a star system that has an Earth-like planet just to see, if it's around 4 billion years old, has life evolved? Is it dead? What's it like? Is it completely toxic? I have no idea. But something like that would be awesome. Smooth Gotti Beats. Are we the only living things in this universe? I don't think so. I think the odds are in life's favor. That given enough time, random carbon atoms will start to bond with hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and make some sort of single-celled creature. I bet there's at least other bacteria, amoeba-like things out there in the universe. How many of them are smart? I don't know. It takes time to make something smart. If our sun formed 4.5 billion years ago, and for 500 million years we were just an ooey gooey ball of magma, nothing can evolve. Our moon was so close that it just made gigantic tides, essentially sanitize the surface of the Earth over and over again. So it took a long time for that moon to drift back and make the tides smaller. And then you had to look at, where life evolved. Life evolved in the oceans. You might get some plant life and things on the surface, but for the most part, it was oceanic life that was most complex early. And because we had a moon, that gave us tidal zones and estuaries where these creatures could be in these tidal zones and be exposed to the atmosphere and exposed to water throughout the day. And that's what was the evolutionary driver for land-based animals. Because if you are the first land-based animal, right, you don't have to worry about predators. So if you are the first one to develop lungs that can breathe air, then you can eat all the little plants and whatever else happens to be on the surface for quite a while before another creature evolves, either from another creature that got lungs or from some branching of your creature. And then all of a sudden you might have competition and predation, which becomes more drivers for evolution. So, if we're going to see land-based animals, my guess is you would need planets that also have moons like ours to do it. Because it just would take way too long for a planet with oceans that didn't have tides to get animals on the surface in any meaningful numbers, and get those evolutionary drivers, those survival of the fittest mechanisms to force more branches of evolution. So we're probably looking for planets that have moons to be able to drive evolution in ways that we have here on Earth. And the Earth's moon seems pretty unique. Most moons are captured. The Earth's moon appears to have been blasted out of us because of a big giant collision between the Earth and a Mars-sized planet, 4.5 billion years ago. So how many collisions are like that in other solar systems to make moons so that there's evolutionary drivers for land-based animals? I don't know. If Mars kept going, if Mars hadn't had its core shut down and kept, volcanoes kept producing atmosphere and we still had oceans and stuff on Mars, I'm sure whatever life was on Mars would be inside the oceans and not on land. Or at least you might have plants and stuff on land, but the creatures would mostly be in the oceans. Okay. I need to get down to, while I was talking about that, I missed a few super chats. There's Smooth Guy, Dr. Stonk. He says, do you see some of this money in the Caymans being repatriated after MOASS? Also, you missed a super chat from Cash Dallas. You rule. Oh, sorry. I'll find Cash Dallas. The only way I see Barry O. Where's Cash Dallas? Oh, Miss Andrew too, I think. Oh no, I got Andrew. Where's Cash Dallas? Oh, there's Cash Dallas. Okay, sorry, Cash Dallas. The only way I see a lot of that money getting repatriated is via those shell corporations and offshore accounts buying stuff here in the U.S. Buying penthouses in New York, buying jewelry and cars. For the most part, that money just seems to stay offshore. The U.S. government has the power because we designed all the banking software to reach in and take that money whenever we want. And they haven't done it because there's so many power players that will raise a stink if we do. I would be all for like saying, hey, you have 6 months to repatriate this money with banks in the United States, pay your taxes on it, or we're going to take it all from you and you get nothing. That would be the type of power move I'd like to see, because even legit companies, you get companies like Apple that have like $200 or $300 billion in profits offshored because they don't want to pay taxes on it. Well, make them. Like, hey, Apple, do you want that money in your accounts and pay, your 15% taxes, corporate taxes, or do you want us to take all of it because you're committing a crime? Seems pretty straightforward to me that's what they should be doing. Okay. Cash Dallas, thanks, Houston. Did you hear about AMC listed as an ADR in Brazil exchange? These are 3.3 billion shares by Citibank. Can they cover shorts via ADR? So from what I've read about ADR in here, in Brazil they call it BDR, I guess, is that these are 1/6 of a share. So if you divide those 3.3 billion by 6, you get essentially the float of GameStop, that 500 million shares. And it's a way of trading foreign stocks on like the equivalent of the OTC in Brazil. So here in the US, we have foreign stocks that will trade that way, and you're trading like 1/6 of a share when you do it. Why? I don't honestly know, but I think it was just kind of people went, what? 3.3 billion shares? And they didn't realize that the 3.3 billion fractional shares, they're all 1/6 of a real share. So you divide that sucker by 6, and you're right back at what is the total number of outstanding shares for AMC. The guy who pointed to the ADRs in that way. Okay. Oh, goodness. A whole bunch of you just sent a bunch of super chats all at once. Okay. That was Dr. Stonks. Got Dr. Stonk. Nick Callis. Why can't Palantir stay above 25? Is their evaluation sky high? Do you think Michael Burry is right in his fight with Cathie Wood? Palantir, it's a Peter Thiel company, and Peter Thiel is a Bond villain, essentially. They do seem to be hedging right now. The latest news I heard from them is they just bought a bunch of gold with cash on hand because they're expecting a big market correction. When you have a fresh new company who's built upon government contracts, and all of a sudden the candidate of choice is no longer in the presidency for that company, it can be really iffy. Peter Thiel is very much a Trumper, and Democrats don't like him very much. So, while they're not supposed to play favorites in that way, they're supposed to go with the lowest bidder. It can't help if the people you support aren't the ones in power. So that might be why we see Palantir kind of teetering at the moment and not climbing too high. Is that the near future outlook for future contracts probably aren't the greatest. Now, they may present tech that is absolutely unique, and the government may have no choice but to buy it. But it's a company that's going to be based upon getting these government contracts, because a lot of what they do isn't necessarily aimed towards private industry. Private industry doesn't have the same purchasing power as the government does for a lot of their tech. So that's what we may see. Michael Burry, I'm going to type this in because I'm not actually too up to date on what he and Cathie Wood are up to. Okay, so Michael Burry's betting against Cathie Wood's ETF. Cathie Wood saying Michael Burry does not understand innovation space. So Michael Burry revealed he's betting against a star stock picker, Cathie Wood, in portfolio update this week. The fund, should probably put this on the big screen here. The fund manager's new position is no surprise, as he publicly predicted that the ARC's chief hot streak won't last. and compared her to past growth investors whose luck ran out. So I guess her ETF has a bunch of tech stock, Shopify, Coinbase, Zoom, Tesla, which Burry is also shorted on. I can understand shorting Zoom and shorting Tesla because the pandemic will end eventually and Zoom won't be used as much. There will be some sort of contraction there. But Zoom is a company that will exist for quite a while until some new tech comes along. You know, Zoom supplanted I can't remember the name of the company they just supplanted. Microsoft bought because they haven't used them in so long. But they'll be king of the hill for video streaming for quite a while. But the pandemic should ease at some point, making using that technology not as rampant. Tesla is running into a problem where other established car companies are producing just as good electric cars at the moment, and they're stealing some of that thunder and a lot of that market share. Plus, their cars are newer, up-to-date looking, fancier, and Tesla hasn't really come up with a revolutionary design for their vehicles in a while. They haven't been changing the looks of their models as fast as other companies are equipped to do. Shopify and Coinbase, people still need websites. People still will be using crypto wallets, but yeah. So, I mean, I understand some of Burry's takes on that, and I wouldn't doubt if we get like a .com bubble 2.0 happening with some of this stuff when we realize that Uber for some reason can't make money, that they are just their entire business model is taking investor cash. People are discovering that Uber is no longer a cheap option. It's actually cheaper to go with a taxi than it is to use Uber's service. And if you're charging $55 for a 5-minute ride in Uber and the driver is not seeing 95% of that money, then people will move to the cheaper service that happens to pay the driver more. So I think we're seeing some weird things in that space. So I'm not too up to date on this. I'll have to read more. But yeah. So yeah, it seems like Wood is betting a lot more on cryptocurrencies at the moment than Michael Burry ever was. And I understand the hesitation. I'm totally hesitant of future crypto prices because so much of it is built upon kind of like Ponzi schemes and similar. And it's just going to do this while we unveil the sketchy stuff that's happening with various cryptos. Christopher Sawchuk, law of really large numbers. Given enough opportunities, we should expect a specified event to happen, no matter how unlikely. There's life in space. Pretty much. That's kind of what the Drake's equation is all about. And, Drake's equation basically suggests, with current understanding of variables, that intelligent life pops up about once every 10,000 years per galaxy. So, essentially, for every 10,000 galaxies, you should have at least 2 smart things alive at the same time. Now, we don't really have the ability to contact or travel to other galaxies because they are just so far away. But I think it's very likely that there's intelligent life elsewhere in the universe. It's very possible. The odds are in life's favor in that respect. Hey Houston, I'm interested in your favorite sci-fi or general fiction authors. Ooh. Well, I love absurdist literature, so I like Joseph Heller and Kurt Vonnegut the most. The single greatest book, like nonfiction book I've ever read, is The Selected Works of T.S. Spivet. This book is so incredibly beautiful. The ending's kind of meh, but the book itself is one of the most beautiful pieces of literature I've ever read in my entire life. It's by Reef Larson, and if you get a version, you have to get one that has the drawings in the margins. It's about this little boy who lives outside of Butte, Montana, in a little valley, and he kind of grows up just with his siblings on this farm, and he's really interested in maps and bugs and all sorts of stuff, and he likes drawing pictures of them and mapping things out and making lists, and he's a little nerd. and he goes to a talk at one of the local colleges and meets a biologist who does insect work, and he offers to draw pictures for her papers. And so she takes those pictures and she submits them to the Smithsonian, and then the Smithsonian, not realizing this is like a little 10-year-old boy, award him a resident scientist position at the Smithsonian. And so without telling his parents, he like hops the rails across the country to go claim his prize as the resident scientist at the Smithsonian. And it's just a beautiful book. I don't want to go too much further into it because it's such a treasure, but this is one of the greatest books I've ever read in my entire life. The Selected Works of T.S. Spivet by Reef Larson. It's beautiful. It's just, me go like this. You're like, oh, it's so beautiful. I highly recommend it. Sci-fi wise, I'm a big fan of early Heinlein. Robert Heinlein wrote amazing things. When he got older in life, he kind of got lazier, and it was just more excuses for him to write 3 ways into stories. But even then, some of those works like Friday are pretty good. Who else would I recommend on that list? I don't have too many of the sci-fi books in here. Most sci-fi books I read, I get from the library, because so much sci-fi can be hit and miss for me that I don't want to like invest in buying it. I've got my Heinlein books in here. Stranger in a Strange Land, my favorite science fiction book of all time. I think it would make an epic like HBO series, and I don't understand why no one's done that yet. Even books, his other books that were made into movies, like Master of Puppets and Starship Troopers. Like Starship Troopers is such a hilarious movie, but it's one of those things where it's vastly different from the story of the book. Like books like Ender's Game, a lot of mainstream ones I really liked a lot. Spider, what's his name? Spider Robinson, is that his name? Can't remember. Yeah, Spider Robinson. He does. I love his works. Asimov. There's a lot of guys out there I like. So take your pick, and if you got cool ones, recommend them to me. I'll eat them up eventually. Okay. Oh man, you guys, so many super chats so far. I can't keep up. Garfield Connolly, you keep swapping AMC GME in this stream. Do I? Do I keep saying the wrong words? Oh, I might do that. I might say AMC and then say GME in the next sentence. I'm sorry if I do that. Tex Chaos says he got his Kon-Tiki. It's a great book. Excellent read. Quick read. Thor Heyerdahl is a badass. He was just wrong about his hypothesis. But what he was able to do on that boat in his harrowing adventure across the Pacific is absolutely phenomenal. That takes some real balls to do by yourself. Okay, where are those other ones? Okay, Mark, super chats. So MOASS happens. A, you start a philosophical YouTube channel and take all the super chat earnings and donate. B, produce educational content. PPS. C, hire Neil deGrasse Tyson to focus on Cosmos. D, all the above. Well, I've been working for years on trying to create a geology TV show. It's called Get Your Rocks Off with Houston. And in my YouTube channel, you can see the sizzle reel we made. I did a Kickstarter in 2013, and we filmed a 44-minute version of the show, but I never had enough money to do all the editing and computer graphics, so I don't really have a 44-minute episode. I got the footage for it. But the idea of the show is each week I take you on an adventure. We go somewhere new, and we find, we talk about a specific mineral. It might be diamonds or sapphires or rubies or carbon or coltan or gold or whatever. Or maybe a geologic event like a specific earthquake or a volcanic event. We talk about how the earth made it, where you can find it, and famous examples of it out there, and then we go and get it. So if we're doing, say, rubies, we might go to the Cheyenne Mountains and go look in Wyoming and go look for rubies, and we'll dig a bunch, and we'll talk about like how the earth made these things, famous rubies that are out there, what they can be used for, and then we might make something cool out of them. Might cut them up and make them into gemstones, and we could take a Hollywood person along, take a Scarlett Johansson. She can go dig a bunch of rubies with us. We teach her how to cut them. She can design her own jewelry, wear them on the red carpet, and then sell them at auction for some charity. The idea was kind of start out with the sexy stuff first, your diamonds and your rubies and your opals and whatnot. And then every once in a while work in the more industrial side of it and talk about, blood diamonds in Africa or coltan mines or where lithium's coming from. And so every once in a while we kind of have more of a where does all the stuff we use come from type episode. Because everything, absolutely everything you wear, use, eat, whatever, is either grown or mined. And things that are grown are essentially mining stuff out of the earth anyway, right? They're sucking nutrients out of the soil, water out of the soil. They're doing their own little form of mining. In my room right now, everything around me was either grown or mined, right? The vinyl around the double pane windows, that was sucked out of the earth as oil. The glass itself came from sand. The books are made from trees. The cabinet is wood. This was sucked out of the earth. This was mined. It doesn't just like suddenly appear at Walmart. There's a huge chain of events that happen, and a gigantic lit market and black market behind these things. And so I would love to do an episode where I go to a slave pit in Angola and follow one particular diamond from the hands of a person in a pit to a foreman, to a warlord, to a black market dealer, to a gem cutter, to a legit gem seller, to someone's finger at a Fred Meyer Jewelers. I would love to show that one diamond's journey, and also talk about the science behind it and the market pressures behind it and what the cartels were, and why we assign value to these things, and that's kind of my dream. And plus it would allow me to travel the world and someone would pay me to do it. So yeah, I definitely want to do an educational channel for sure, with some gravitas and money behind it, so we can do cool shit, because I don't know how to make computer graphics to make volcanoes fart and stuff like that. So perhaps an all of above on that one. Plus, I'd like to meet Neil deGrasse Tyson someday. Isaiah Alba, Houston, what are the chances that Citadel would buy the GameStop company and then bankrupt it to cover shorts? I don't think they can. They would have to buy so many shares at this point that there'd be no way they could do that. It's way too expensive. They don't have enough cash on hand. I mean, they were selling bonds back in February and March because they need cash. If they could buy GameStop, they would have already, but they physically do not have the cash on hand to do that. So I think it's very low that they would be able to do that. Matthew Bowers, Super Chats. Don't agree with all of your politics, but I have mad respect for your knowledge in many subjects. Big fan of your podcast. Great Reset, Real Possibility. I think with MOASS, there's going to be some form of reset. There's going to be a bunch of people that are members of, the cat is joining me. You can see his little tail here. A bunch of people who have a lot of money, who handed it over to hedge funds to manage, and those hedge funds will just be losing it all. Michael Jordan lost $500 million with Melvin by March. So, there's a lot of folks out there who are going to be losing some cash. And so there'd be a reset in those ways. And then there's folks like us as retail investors who have, we're betting that we're going to be getting a pile of cash. We're going to be taking all of their money essentially. So I think there's going to be a little bit of action on that seesaw, as stuff swaps from one side to the other. But there are a bunch of folks who are not playing one way or the other. You got your Jeff Bezoses and your Bill Gates and folks like that they might see a little hit to their overall net worth, and it's just going to bounce right back again. So I think it will be little resets here and there, but probably not a great reset. Excuse me. Best gem hunting spot in New Mexico. Ooh. Where was it? It was Well, in the Blacks Range, you can find little micro bixbite. So it's the only spot in the world you can find bixbite other than Utah. But I haven't heard of any big ones there. You can get pegmatites. You can get sunstones, like kind of pinkish ones. Oh crap! This was like 15 years ago when I went there. I can't remember where I went. Sunstones, New Mexico. Of course, nothing's popping up. Where was that? It was just south of the Blacks Range, a little north of like Silver City. Where was I? Oh, I'll bring up Google Earth here. Sorry, one sec. Got to go. Boom. Google Earth. Turn off the Chrome there. Oops, no, turn off the Chrome. There we go. Okay, Google Earth. Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Oh man, I cannot remember me. Maybe? Shoot, I can't remember the name of the range. Oh, Worthington, Magdalena, San Antonio. Where are we? Truth and Consequences. Okay. Las Cruces. We are... can't remember. There's a great spot where I got a whole bunch of sunstones from, and the name is not coming to me at the moment. This was like 2006, maybe 2007. When did I last go there? Can't remember. Flaw Gold, Matt Matson, he does a great little video from a long time ago on some gemstones in Mexico. And he talks about the I'll put it in the chat here. Flaw Gold is his YouTube channel. Matt Matson. He's a little crazy, but he does make good videos on how to find stuff. He's just a little out there. He made his fortune. Apparently, he discovered a Confederate shipwreck in like Tampa Bay that had millions of dollars of silver, and that's how he retired. And he just goes treasure hunting from this point forward. And he's got like a weird little bush plane, and he's got millions, and so he just spends that time looking for stuff. And he's found, cities that were lost in the Everglades that were built by the Seminoles, and he's made lots of weird first discoveries. But he also seems to spend a lot of his time hiring models to hang out with him. So he's got what works for him, I guess. Where was those freaking pegmatites? What was the name of that creek? There's a really hairy road to get there too. Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to look that up later. I'll have to get back to you. But there, I do think, and I've been meaning to take a trip out there, but in the very northeastern corner of Nevada, I think there's kimberlite pipes. There's a lot of these little pockmark, these guys here. So you can see all these little dry lakes. These are set up very similar to kimberlite pipes that are found in Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. So I've been meaning to go out and test, but this is all private land out here, private ranches and stuff. So I need to get permission to go and test some of these things. But I have a feeling, just look at the way these little lakes are set up. There's so many of them, and they're grouped together, and they're about the right size, that it's very likely these could be kimberlite pipes. And so I want to go and test them. And I was originally going to do my space studies master's thesis on these guys by talking about, satellites that could do Earth measurements, Earth observation satellites, and then I ended up, my school money took forever to get in, and so I didn't have the money to go out and mine this stuff and go look. So I still have a project I really want to do and look for, see if I can find diamonds in northeastern New Mexico, if these are kimberlite pipes. And the testing's pretty simple. Pour acid on it, and if it sizzles, you got yourself an alkali material, and that's sign number one. And sign number two, you just start digging. And there's 50% chance, if it's kimberlite, you're going to find diamonds, or at least diamondiferous-looking materials, like pyrope garnets and other associated materials. But there's just so many of these little pot lakes that, I mean, these are all look exactly like kimberlite pipes do in Montana. So I think it's a very real possibility that they're in northeastern New Mexico. And if you want to like go out and take a trip out there and look yourself, by all means, just report back. They're jebbing. Yeah. Dawn, Super Chats. The hype for investing in the metaverse, buying virtual real estate in them is growing. Think it stick? Collective unconscious escapist craze correlated with severity of COVID and MAGA folk. People have asked me this before. I have not had a chance to look up this weird online virtual real estate thing and see what the hell it even means. I don't even know what it means, Don. Maybe that's something I should look at right now, because I honestly don't know. Is metaverse virtual real estate? What does it even mean? Okay, so this is so these like weird NFTs, the metaverse stuff. I don't. Huh. All right. So I understand the NFT art stuff. Is that what that virtual real estate is considered? I don't know. It's, to me, these NFT art things are like Beanie Babies for tech bros. Oh, that's right. I didn't have my sorry. I'm staring at a screen here and not showing you what that screen is. There we go. Oh, go away. There it is. A lot of this NFT stuff, I think, is a bubble of sorts, like a fad. There are rational things that the NFTs can play into for transferring data, protecting data, encrypting things. But, you know, just turning a GIF of Kobe Bryant making a dunk and then selling it for $700,000, like, that means nothing to anyone in the end, because I can go find that exact same GIF that isn't encrypted as NFT and enjoy it the same as the person who spent $500,000 on it. And I can replicate it, and I can send it to people, and I can do all the things I could do even if I don't own, you know, the original NFT of that thing. So that's why I call it kind of Beanie Babies for tech bros. I think it's, people had a lot of cash on hand and they're looking for places to put it, and they're like, I'm gonna put it here. So but map that lands on sandbox game. So these are like NFTs and some sort of real estate thing. I'm gonna have to like dig deeper into this stuff. These things make no sense to me. So I don't know. Like, I like buying things that I find useful. I have a hard time buying stuff that I have no use for, and I have no use for virtual real estate. So my brain really isn't wrapped around that yet. Yeah. So this is not my wheelhouse. Sorry, Don. I don't have too much I can answer on that one. But thank you for the super chat. Oh, who'd I miss? So that was Don. Dr. Stonk. How much movie Interstellar is accurate with time dilation and black holes? Also, are you a David Foster Wallace fan? Have you read Infinite Jest? Yes, I've read Infinite Jest. That was a long time ago. But yeah, David Foster Wallace he's an excellent author. How much of Interstellar is accurate? Not very much. I mean, the structure of their black hole was very accurate and how it gives off light, but the time dilation around the planet wasn't very accurate. So if we use El Baseball here, so we got the black hole somewhere over here, and as you get closer to the center of gravity for the black hole, you're going to experience time dilation as you accelerate faster and faster towards that black hole. Now, if you're orbiting a black hole, you are at one area of gravitational pull acceleration towards that black hole. And yes, you'll experience more time dilation than an object that may be further away. But just like if the sun collapses into a black hole today, if you're on one side of the Earth versus the other side of the Earth, you aren't going to experience time dilation because it's all focused on the center of gravity for that black hole. So it would not change for the sun. In Interstellar, they had a little satellite, their spaceship that was orbiting the planet while the folks were down on the surface. And due to the tidal forces of the black hole, it had these gigantic waves and stuff. What they had was so much time dilation between the ship that's orbiting and the ship that's on the surface that, like, while an hour took place on the surface, it was like 20 years out for the ship. That is not at all how time dilation would work. Because the ship is orbiting and it would take 90 minutes or so to orbit. So in the end, they would experience, on one side of their star, they would experience much more time dilation, or one side of the planet, they experience more time dilation. On the other side of the planet, less. On the other side, more. On the other side of the planet, less. It would all be a wash in the end. So you wouldn't have the poor guy trapped in that ship alone for 20 years going crazy while the couple are on the surface and they're experiencing one tidal wave for an hour and they go back up. So that stuff was not accurate at all. The weird rock cloud things don't make any sense to me either. That, like, where Matt Damon was trapped. Interstellar, if they just presented Interstellar as like, here's a sci-fi movie, I would have loved it. It would be magnificent. But for months, I was reading and listening to interviews and like, oh man, we got these physicists on board. This is going to be the most accurate physics movie ever. And then I watched it and I was like, none of that's how it would work. And that pissed me off. Like, don't promise me an accurate science fiction movie and then present to me a whole bunch of crap that isn't accurate in any way. Bah humbug. So no, not very accurate regarding time dilation in the black hole itself. Mark super chats. I keep my wife's 1.6 carat wedding ring out, but a great answer, and hoping you will be able to bring your enthusiasm and knowledge across the globe. Oh, thank you. That's a nice size ring, 1.6 carat. That's a nice ring. Good job. Okay, Brian Collins, can you please re-explain the whole GME MOASS situation for those of us that have friends and family that aren't on board yet? Okay, so trying to explain shorting to people is step number one. So you have to explain like what shorting means. And in the traditional sense, the way it's supposed to happen is a hedge fund is going to bet against a stock. So they want to sell that stock at a premium and make the most money they can before it drops. And to do that, they go to somebody who owns that stock and they say, hey, may I borrow your shares of stock? And the person who has them is like, well, why? I'm like, well, I'm going to pay you this fee and interest rate for however long that stock is sold. I will keep paying you interest rate, and then eventually I'll give you all your shares back. And the person lending them says, all right. So let's say they borrow 1 million shares of this company, and they sell that company at $100, and the loan has it not so that they give money back to the people they borrowed the shares from, but they give the physical shares back. And so if the price drops from $100 to $90, right, they can go out and they can go buy that same 1 million shares back for $900,000, pocket $100,000 in profit, and return the shares to the owners. Now, you have to pay taxes on that $100,000 you make, as anyone would, because that's profit. Now, if you're a short seller and you're betting that a stock is going to go to zero, right, so you can borrow those 1 million shares, sell them at $100, and watch that stock plummet out of existence, just disappear forever and no longer exist. If that happens, you do not have to pay back your lender because there are no shares to pay back. They don't exist. And you get to keep the, pile of money, the $100 million or whatever it is you made. And sorry, I did my math wrong on the first one. You make $10 million. You get to keep your $100 million. And there's a weird loophole because you never actually bought the stock. You never have any capital gains, and therefore you never pay taxes on any of that money. So you get to keep your $100 million from shorting that stock and never have to pay taxes on it. Woohoo! Yay, loopholes, right? Okay. What happened with GameStop and AMC and a lot of other stocks is that it wasn't that these folks were borrowing shares and then selling them short and hoping the price would go down and later buy it back. It was that they were creating shares out of thin air. They were selling counterfeit shares on the market that did not exist and selling those to people. And so all of a sudden, there were more shares being traded in existence than there should be, which would naturally deflate the price because it compensates the buy pressure. And so when the price drops, retail investors who own the stock panic. They go, oh no, and they don't want to lose what money they have, so they sell. And that causes the price to drop even more. And so these companies will sell even more fake shares on the market, which will drop the price more, which will cause more retail investors to get out. And eventually the price gets forced to zero regardless. And they also do things with these companies where they'll take large enough holdings when the stock price gets low enough, and they'll force the companies to put a member of their hedge fund on the board. And that guy's job is to destroy the company from the inside. They're there to screw up deals with vendors and contractors. They're there to ruin logistics. They're there to make the customer experience terrible. They're there to ruin research and development. They're there to essentially just torpedo the company. So a lot of these corporations that get short attacked by hedge funds, they lose out on not just the stock price, but they get a lot of their other deals just absolutely torpedoed and sabotaged. So the stock price goes even further, and they'll start having them rack up tons of debt that they can't pay back. And you get the added bonus of take a lot of that debt and you give yourself huge bonuses. And then you just walk away into bankruptcy and you collect all that cash and disappear. The stock goes to zero, and then all of a sudden, the short hedge fund after 4 or 5 years pays nothing in taxes. They never had to go out and borrow shares to begin with, and they get away with it because the SEC is not doing its job of making sure this doesn't happen. So that's what happened with GameStop and AMC and a whole bunch of other stocks, was that they would sell naked, retail investors would panic, the price would drop. They'd sell naked, retail investors would panic, and the price would drop. And they were working it down. They got down to $1 something for AMC. I think the lowest for GME was like $2.57. Well, what happened was retail investors finally figured out how to counter that, is that they just gobble up everything and hold it and don't sell. And the price all of a sudden goes up. So if you short sold a stock at $10 down to $2 and the price all of a sudden is $150, you're screwed. Not only do you owe that stock back to all the synthetics you created, either through naked shelling or through borrowing, but you're going to have to pay 10 times as much or more to replace that stock. So currently, Melvin might be out $30 billion on GameStop alone at this price. But if they have to go in and start buying up the stock, the buy pressure goes through the roof because they owe millions and millions and millions of shares, right? So the buy pressure goes through the roof and the price goes even higher. So that $30 billion in current losses extends to $100 billion, $1 trillion, who knows how much, because there's infinite risk involved with this short selling. And that's where we are. We're in this like buy and hold, waiting for them to be forced to buy this stuff back and shoot us to the moon. And that's kind of the basis behind the entire MOASS, behind this entire short squeeze movement that we're in, is that we've got the short hedge funds by the balls, and they're desperately trying to figure out ways to kick the can down the road and survive another day. So there we go. hope that helps out. That's kind of the base level of it all. So once you can explain short selling to your friends and family, you can start explaining the tactics we have behind it, behind not being those retail sellers who panic and sell and drive the price more, but being like, oh, it's a deal, I'm going to buy more, and driving that price back up again. Bridget Reesness super chats. Is Sears still a play? I can no longer find any of the 17 info, and the main guy posting Reddit has deleted himself. Deleted himself? What? Let's go to reddit.com. He was just messaging me not too long ago. u/get it got. Where is he? Where's Get It Got? Where did that dude go? I don't see him in here. That's weird. Where is he? Posts. Jungle. Huh. That's weird. Where'd he go? He's the one that did paid for the survey to figure out how many GME shares are potentially out there. Get it got. If you're watching, bud, what happened to your Reddit account? Where'd it go? Let us know. Give me a shout out here. Oh, here we go. Oh, there he is. No, I got him here. He's existing. Sorry. Oh, I forgot to put on my. Sorry. I forget that you aren't watching the same screen I'm watching. I'm biggest doofus in the world when that comes on. Okay, so get it got. He's there. He's still there. He's done a lot of the Sears stuff. Never mind. Get it got. We found you. You exist. I just posted his link in the chat there. So he's still got a bunch of his Sears stuff up there about how much they own in assets and projected payout for special dividend and things like that. So he's still there. Don't worry. I posted his link in the chat there for you, Bridget. But he's a workhorse, man. He manages to uncover stuff and go deep dives into things. I really appreciate his work. So hope you can check it out. Look at Get It Got stuff. Matthew Bowers, my intuition told me to buy $20 scratch off today. A hit for $1,000. Has your intuition paid off for you when searching for gems and materials? At times, I have gone out into Montana and Wyoming and Colorado and been like, I think I can find kimberlite pipes here, and found them. So that's happened. Excuse me. I have, let's see here. I've had pretty good luck with when I metal detected for gold. I've been like, I think in this area I can find gold. I'll look at a mountain range. Let's go to Google Earth. Scene. Google Earth. Get rid of the Chrome. Okay. So I'll go, I don't know, like I might just stare at mountain ranges and I'll go to the Wallowas here. And like this is in northeastern Oregon. And I know this is a gold bearing region. Like there's little towns like Cornucopia and stuff in here that were gold mining towns. But a lot of these mountain ranges in the Northwest weren't really extensively searched. They weren't explored and prospected because people started to settle them much later than they did like California and Nevada. And so a lot of these valleys went unsearched for a while. So, you know, I'll go through these valleys, and when World War II hit, gold mining became illegal in 1941 because they wanted these people focused on the war effort to go mine, you know, manganese and magnesium and copper and stuff they needed for the war effort. So a lot of places that may have been previously explored never got really exploited that much. But basically, where there's mountains, there's gold, and so you go into these streams and you have like a little forest road here. You might have a stream with a little bend in the river, and you look at that bend in the river and you say, okay, the low pressure zone for gold is going to be on this little sandbar here. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to look for gold. And you hike from the road down to the river and go panning. And I've pretty good luck hitting this stuff. I mean, I've got technology available to me that allows me to do in a day what it would take a gold miner in 1850 6 months to accomplish. I've got badass trucks. I've got GPS. I've got Google Earth. I've got metal detectors. I've got water pumps. I've got a whole host of things available to me that they never had. And so I can go out and I can go and find gold flakes in these streams and rivers much more quickly. I mean, these guys had to bushwhack a trail with like a donkey, and they had to worry about, you know, toothaches killing them and all sorts of stuff. And so, you know, while I might not be right every time, the likelihood of me being right in a day is the same as like them being right in a 6 month period. I can do this entire river system, you know, in a couple of days and see what places have mineralization and when gold falls in the river. And I can work my way up to where the quartz veins might be, where you have higher loads of gold. So a lot of it is educated guesswork on my part. So I don't know if it's necessarily like, oh, there will be gold right here. And more, I read a lot of books and I figured it out from there. And that's kind of how it works. But good luck, good job on your $1,000 law ticket, man. Like heck, I've never won that big. The biggest contest I ever won, and I don't even remember entering, was when I was like 19. Somehow I entered in this online contest and I got third place. And the contest apparently was to win a Ford Focus. My third place prize was this little clamshell Sony television that was kind of shaped and colored like one of those iMacs. They were like fruit colored. And you open it up and you could like, the neck strap was the TV antenna. And you could watch television on this little tiny screen as you walked around. It was called a Watchman. That's the only thing I think I've ever won in a contest. But anything of that sort. Okay. Okay. DS writes, "What do you think about Nibiru? Is it real?" I have no idea. Oh. Let's see here. Man, you guys always bring up sci-fi things I never have heard of. So, Nibiru cataclysm is supposed to be a disastrous... Oops, forgot to put Chrome up here. You can learn with me on this. It's supposed to be a disastrous encounter between Earth and a large planetary object. Either collision or a near miss, and certain groups believe it would take place in the early 21st century. Believers of this doomsday event usually refer to this object as Nibiru or Planet X. The idea was first put forward in 1985 by Nancy Leader, founder of website Zetatalk. Yeah, I don't think it exists. Just reading this right off the top, no, Nibiru does not exist. There are no planetoids in our solar system that are anywhere close to a collision course. We would see it long before there was a collision, so we would know about it by now for sure. There was always thought, there are certain places where things could be in our same orbit, we wouldn't see them. So like on the other side of the sun could be Planet X, and they got the sun in the middle, and we orbit at the exact same periods. We never see Planet X because it's on the other side of the sun. But now we've sent things out in the solar system. We've seen what the other side of the sun looks like, and we don't see any planets there. So there's no Planet X out there. But there are a lot of planetoids out beyond Neptune. We call these planetoids dwarf planets. They're like Sedna and Xerxes, and there's Xena and Gabrielle, which are hilarious. If you are Xena Warrior Princess fans, so there's a lot of these things out there, but they're in such weird elliptical orbits, and they're so far outside Earth's orbit, they'll never cross our paths. Basically, the way you form a solar system is you big giant cloud of gas. It condenses, and a big bulk of it becomes the star in the middle. And as it condenses, it spins faster and faster, so it flattens out into a disk. Inside that disk, you get all sorts of collisions of particles in there, and those are your little protoplanets that start to form, and they collect more and more dust. And over billions of years, they clean out all these lanes of dust inside, and so the collisions become fewer and fewer, and the odds of collisions less and less. And the Earth essentially cleaned out its path. So there's very few asteroids and comets now that cross the Earth's path for the Earth to suck up with its gravity and force a collision. So odds of collisions now for cataclysmic events is one collision every 100 million years or so. And our last big one was 63 million years ago that killed off the dinosaurs. So I think Nibiru is just some hocus pocus woo BS. I don't think it's possible at all. No. But thank you for the super chat, DS. Dr. Stonk, what would be your perfect heist? Not criminal advice. Ooh. Oh, perfect heist. Well, I mean, they say you can rob 3 banks before you ever get caught, right? So he goes. Everyone's got 3 banks they can do. There's some that I've really appreciated. In 2004 in Iowa, I can't remember, it was in Mason City, somewhere like that. George W. Bush and Al Gore both had huge campaign events in the same town at the same time. So all of the police resources went to these two events and like 9 banks got robbed or something nuts like that all at the same time. Absolutely brilliant heist stuff. There was a bank robbery here in Washington after the economy had collapsed in 08, 09. This guy put an ad out saying, hey, day laborers needed. It was on Craigslist. I need day laborers. Meet me in this parking lot. I need you wearing blue jeans, black shirts, and a red bandana. And so like 50 people showed up to do day labor wearing this exact same thing. And then the dude put the bandana over his face, went in and robbed the bank. Well, the bank was right next to a river. And he hopped into the inner tube and just floated away. And so when the police showed up, they apprehended everybody who was wearing the description of the guy who had robbed the bank. And he went uncaught for like a decade until recently he was at a bar just before COVID and got drunk and was bragging about how he was the guy that pulled that robbery off. And then he finally got arrested. So I guess the key to a good heist is never drinking alcohol ever again, so you don't get like loose lips and get yourself busted that way. There are some phenomenal gem heists that are always impressive. The hotel and cons. What was the big one? It's got like a big Cartier shop in it. It's been hit a couple of times for like hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. But perfect heist Houston would think about. Not quite sure. I always come up with like movie ideas. And I always thought a great movie idea would be as a heist film would be like trying to get out of hell. So you have, a gem thief, a prison escape artist, and I don't know, an art thief or something. And they all end up in hell because they died. They end up in hell, and hell sucks, and they want out. And so they use their fantastic ability to like heist out of hell and like break their way into heaven. I think that'd be a funny movie. I don't know. I bet Nicolas Cage would do it because he does anything. But man, I'll think about perfect heists that could be done. Got my brain spinning there, Dr. Stonk. I'll try to think about it. Engineering the Squeeze 2021 just sent a super chat. Thank you for engineering Squeeze. There we go. All right. All right, so I've got got a whole bunch of chats here that I've missed because you guys sent a lot of super chats today. Kept me on my toes. Luis Gonzalez, will humanity ever need a 2012 type arc? And what will be the chances of us getting a ticket? Lol. You start planning. You ever seen the movie 2012? It's absolutely ridiculous. But basically, like, the world's going to end, and there's some rich people who saw it coming, so they spent a bunch of money on building these like things that could survive the apocalypse, the end of everything. I mean, a lot of people had them in their backyards back in the 50s and 60s when the threat of nuclear annihilation was there. I rented a house a few years ago that had a bomb shelter, a not quite complete one in the basement, and it was crazy. Like the walls were like 6 feet thick of concrete, and it was wild. You know, it had water and electricity and drainage, and I bet you can survive for quite some time down there. I mean, where I am, bringing up Google Earth again. Oops, come on. Where I am, zooming out. We've got quite a few first strike centers. So I'm on Bainbridge Island here. Seattle, First Strike Center. Up in Everett, the naval station here is where some of the big aircraft carriers are housed. They're First Strike. Oak Harbor is a Navy base, First Strike. You got Indian Island, which is where the munitions are stored, First Strike. We've got Keyport, which is where the Navy Underwater Warfare Center and they build lots of torpedoes are, First Strike. Here we've got the Bremerton Naval Shipyard, Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, which is where like a quarter of the Navy's aircraft carrier fleets are kept, First Strike. On this side, we've got Bangor Submarine Base, which if we zoom in on Bangor, see all these little things right here? These are bunkers housing warheads for cruise missiles. if Kitsap County, my county, were to secede from the United States of America, we would be the third largest nuclear power in the entire world, because like half of the United States nuclear arsenal is stored right here for the Trident submarines that can be first strike vehicles for cruise missiles armed with nuclear warheads. So another first strike. So I live basically in the middle of a whole bunch of first strike. Oh, and then we got Lewis McChord down here, and this right here is the military base, Fort Lewis McChord, where like Green Berets and all those guys are. So we're just surrounded by first strike locations. So the little house I had that had a bomb shelter in it was in here, was in this neighborhood. Yeah, it was, you know, you think, hey, North Korea can now hit continental U.S., and where they could hit is right in the Seattle area with their missiles. So that was kind of handy. And like, hey, I've got a bomb shelter in my basement. Awesome. I think that's the closest we'll have to arcs at the moment, is leftover bomb shelters from the 50s and 60s. Yeah. I don't think anyone has really big things. There's a group in California. It's like a country club for doomsday preppers, and they pay a monthly fee, and this guy maintains 160 acres or whatever in Northern California with bunkers and cabins and materials for surviving the apocalypse. And I know there's weird groups like that that exist, but I don't know if there's any billionaires that are planning their own weird spaceships to handle this stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. Cough burp. Could you imagine hedge fund managers trying to get Michael Jordan to donate more? This investment is going to be a slam dunk. Well, Michael Jordan loves golf and he loves betting. And apparently, what's his butt from Melvin, can't remember his name at the moment, he apparently became a golf buddy with Michael Jordan and convinced him to just dump a bunch of money into Melvin. So Melvin's got 16 investors, and Michael Jordan is one of those 16. So yeah, they lost Michael Jordan a lot of money that he'll never get back. Yeah. All right. Resident Flea wants to know what shirt I would wear for the MOASS. Honestly, I don't know. I'd go by whichever shirt I have a feeling that I like that day. I don't know what shirt I'm going to wear. I just picked this shirt out right before we went on air. I had no idea what shirt I was going to wear today. All I know is what shirts I've already worn, and those ones won't get worn again until, their time comes up next year or something. What would be good MOASS shirts? I've got a couple of space shirts with like moons and planets on them and stuff. Maybe some space shirts might be appropriate. I know I've got at least one that's got monkeys. That would make sense. Right, monkey butt? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have any plans for those necessarily. It depends what time of the year. If it happens in November, then it's Shiny Shirt Week, which is the longest week of year. It's 6 weeks of shiny shirts. So you're going to get shiny shirts no matter what, starting the second week of November. Shiny Shirt Week, hashtag Shiny Shirt Week. I'm the only person who celebrates it, but I do it every year. It's been 15 years I've been doing Shiny Shirt Week. Let's see here. What questions we got here from you folks? Dan Rod, foot soldier of VWAP. If you could be bankrolled to mine any resource in space, what would you mine and why? Ooh. I think the quickest and most successful thing is going to be helium-3, because the moon's right there. We can get to and from the moon in 3 days easily, and it will have the largest impact on climate change immediately. Plus, be worth just a fortune. Helium-3 is like the best sure bet to mine stuff in space, because it will be able to produce so much electricity with it that we won't need cars. We don't need nuclear power plants. We won't need coal fire plants. We don't need natural gas. We won't even need hydroelectric dams. We won't even need solar panels or windmills. We could do it all with helium-3 for the next 10,000 years, and restore a lot of nature back to its original state, which I think would be marvelous. It would be marvelous to be able to see all the ancient waterfalls on the Columbia River, where I live. Like the Columbia River out here is one of the biggest flowing rivers in the world. It's not super long. It comes Washington-Oregon border up through Washington, up through Canada, and does this weird hooky-doo up in Canada. But it drains a whole bunch of these glaciers up here in snowpack all throughout these states. And it's a big, wide river. And there were huge waterfalls on the Columbia River for, ever. And there used to be gigantic salmon runs that went up the Columbia River and up the Snake River, and to Kettle Falls River and all these different river systems up here. And I would love to be able to have that ecosystem returned, because we can get rid of these hydroelectric dams. I'm not sure all of them we would get rid of, because some of them are for irrigation control, because this is a big giant breadbasket for America. Tons of wheat is grown here. Tons of wine grapes, hops, barley is grown here. Most of the hops that go into beer in the world come from the Yakima Valley. We got apples and peaches and all sorts of stuff that are grown in there. So I'm sure some of the dams will maintain for irrigation for these farm fields, because this is just a desert out here in eastern Washington, much like eastern Oregon or eastern California. It's the same climate as a lot of this stuff in the Basin and Range. But I think helium-3 is the way to go, first of all. Mining asteroids will be super lucrative once we can either capture one or get the material from one to the Earth, because it will shut down mining operations on Earth for metals. There'll be never a need to mine the Earth for metals ever again. Granted, both of these space mining things will have drastic effects on employment on the planet, because if you're able to take a group of 20 or 100 people to space, and they can mine more metal in a few days than have ever been mined on the surface of the Earth by hundreds of millions of people, that's going to put a lot of people out of work. And there's 100 million subsistence miners out there. These are folks that, they live in poverty. They might live on river systems in Mongolia or Borneo or Suriname, and they're out panning rivers every single day to get, a few dollars of gold here and there, and that's what these people survive on. And so they won't have a market anymore. That few dollars of gold every day might be cents, and then all of a sudden they don't have a living. So it will definitely drastically impact a whole bunch of people around the globe. You go to places and you see huge mines you can see this from space right here. Right here, this is the Bingham mine, which is one of the largest copper mines in the entire world, just outside Salt Lake City. And you have this huge, giant pit that you can see from space. And the thousands of people that work in giant mines like this, you won't need their work anymore. They will serve no purpose, right? So all of a sudden you just put huge amounts of people out of work. And places like Nevada is dotted with big open pit mines like that. If we go, let's see here, we've got Carson Sink is this, right? So Carson Sink here. We've got, here's an open pit mine. This one's not nearly as big, but there's one right there. There's another one a bit north. There's another one there. We can go the big one over here. Nevada is just absolutely littered, because Nevada doesn't really care. Nevada's a weird thing because of the Basin and Range. There really isn't a drop of water that hits Nevada that leaves Nevada, because every single mountain range has its own little basin. So it's really hard to spread toxins out of your state borders. So they just let people mine like crazy. Got the Berkeley Pit in Montana. Where's my butte? Where are you, butte? I can't find butte. Up here. Butte. Berkeley Pit was one of the biggest copper mines in the world. There's Missoula. So Butte is before Missoula. Butte's in here somewhere. Is that Butte? Plains. I'll type it in. I can't find it without labels. Oops. Oh, you can already see my map here. Because I don't have my map screen up. Scene. There we go. There's Butte. So here's the Berkeley Pit. This is a gigantic, horribly toxic old copper mine, and this pit is now flooded with water. The sulfurs in here are have created sulfuric acid. So this entire water lake that's formed is completely full of sulfuric acid. And birds will be like, oh, water, a lake I can land on. They'll be flying the land. They'll just disappear. They do have like a viewing platform, I guess, somewhere along here in one of the mine tunnels, and you can like look at the Berkeley pit. But it's poisoned the groundwater for a huge region, and the groundwater is getting flooded with sulfuric acid. So, if we can stop mines like this from existing and humanity can still get a lot of the materials they need, it'd be fantastic. So there's some huge benefits to mining space. Yeah. And I, get stuck on my weird tangents again. Garfield Connolly, yeah, share the screen. Sorry, I forget to share the screen sometimes. Oops, sorry about that. I'll start going to my computer screen, just assuming you can see what I'm seeing and you're not seeing it. Oh, that means I didn't share. Oh, I didn't share. Oh, shoot. I'll go back. I forgot to share where the Bingham mine is. Duh. I'm an idiot. So you can see the Bingham mine from space. Get down here. So here we are. This is Salt Lake City. This guy right there is the Bingham mine. It's, I think, the largest hole ever made. It's gigantic. It's, like a mile deep. I have to turn on the everything. How do I 3D? We're just going to turn on everything here so that I can get 3D perspective. Will that work? Is that giving us a 3D perspective? Oh no. Where's my 3D perspective? Sorry. I turned off my 3D. Oh, terrain. There we go. That's what we want. All right. So now we can see how big this hole is. It is a gigantic hole. This used to be a mountain that was several thousand feet high, and now it's a giant hole in the ground that's several thousand feet deep. It's like close to a mile deep. It's nuts. It's gotten so steep and so dangerous that in 2013 they had a whole bunch of landslides happen and bury millions of dollars of equipment, because those big Caterpillar trucks are, they're $5 million each. And when we filmed the pilot for my TV show, we were going to do a tour of the Bingham pit and talk about mineral extraction, and they had to cancel because they had just had a huge landslide in like September 2013 that buried a whole bunch of stuff here. So it's nuts. Come on. Whoops. Come on. Give me straight up and down here. Ah, where'd it go? Oh, I think my Google Earth just crashed. No. Maybe we'll open back up. We'll see here. There it goes. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Dismiss. Go away. All right. So there's our Bingham pit. Biggest hole. So that's one of the biggest holes in the world. And then we go north up to Timmins in Canada. Ottawa. Here we go. Timmins. It's up here, right? Oh, that's a lake. Where's Timmins? Timmins. There's Timmins. Okay, so we got the Kid Creek mine up here. This is, they got a big open pit as well. That's here, but their mine shafts go down like 11,000 feet into the earth. And so technically it's the closest point to the center of the earth in the entire world. It's not the deepest mine. The deepest mines are gold mines in South Africa that go down like 13,000 feet. But they're pretty nuts. And this is a copper mine as well, but they get a lot of gold as a byproduct. Okay, I'm getting off on my tangents and missing my super chats here. Okay, there's Bridget. There's Matthew. There's DS. There's Dr. Stonk. There is... Oh, there's Garfield. Okay. Farzam's debris field. Hey, brother, I got a Saffordite gem and it's really cool under light. Are there any other gems other than this one AMC recommend? A lot of cool gems out there. I like green garnets. I like dematoid garnets and savorite garnets. They reflect light really cool and they're really pretty. I like opals. Precious opals are awesome. I talked about Mexican fire agates. Those are really cool. I like color change stones. You can get color change garnets, color change sapphires, chrysoberyls like alexandrite that go like red green or like purple blue, and they change depending on if you are in manufactured light versus sunlight, like polarized light versus other light, and they're awesome. I like the colors, like rhodonite is a really cool kind of neon red color. What other bitchin' ones are out there? I like Paraiba tourmalines are a crazy color. Those are found in Paraiba, Brazil, and they're copper included tourmalines. Are this like crazy. I don't know if you can see the color of like Garfield Connolly or Joey Sullivan's super chats. They're kind of like that color. They're like a really weird blue. They're beautiful. Watermelon tourmaline are awesome. They're like pink and green. They look like cuts of a watermelon. And there's lots of cool ones out there. Hey, little licky man. You don't need a lick. You don't need a lick. Yeah, there's lots of cool ones out there. Search the world. If you want to see cool stones that you can never afford and just take a look at them, let's see here. I can't remember the exact website. I'm going to have to go scene, get rid of Google Earth, get rid of there. I think it's ajsgems.com I'm thinking of. AGS Gem. AGS Gem, they're kind of a wholesaler for really rare, beautiful stones. And if you don't know what stones are, like Mahenge Spinel, these are really cool. They're a beautiful color. They're kind of a weird neon. Cobalto calcite, and that's a beautiful stone. They got traditional ones, rubies, stuff like that. Tourmalines. There's the Paraiba tourmaline I was talking about. Pink tourmaline. These what are they called? Starts with an R. Rhodetic tourmaline? I can't remember the name of it. Savorite garnets. They don't have any demontoid at the moment. Color change garnets are bitchin'. They kind of go blue-purple. Zircons can do some cool colors. Chrysoberyls. So you got alexandrites that color change, named after Prince Alexander of Russia. Precious opals. Cat's eyes, do cool stuff. Star stones are awesome. Bezotayite is kind of related to, it's a beryl-ish stone. It's kind of related to beryls. They do a cool pink color. But these things are just absolutely nuts in price. These are like world-class stones. So if you click on, let's click on Spinels here. And like, this thing's 3 carats and $37,000. So you get $10,000 a carat for one of these suckers. That's not affordable. This is rich people's stones. These are the type of stones that end up at auction houses and pieces of jewelry that sell for millions. So I think these guys are a wholesaler. These are wholesalers selling these stones for like 40 grand each. Absolutely bonkers. But it gives you a good idea of what like world-class gemstones can look like. We go, let's go blue sapphire, see if there's any cashmere sapphires in here. Yeah. So here's a 14 karat cashmere sapphire, $124,000. Yeah, they $69,000 for 5 carat gemstone. These things are bonkers. These are top notch. You put them on Elizabeth Taylor's hands type stones. And they don't really do diamonds. They focus mostly on colored gemstones. But it's a great site to kind of peruse and just see what the bonkers rich people are buying for their girlfriends and stuff. Okay, Joey Sullivan. Can the SEC cap the share price during MOASS? Technically, yes. They can probably stop trading and force a settlement price. Will they do it? I don't know. I honestly don't know. It might not be in the interest of U.S. markets to negotiate a settlement price because it can scare away investment by foreign investors, and 40% of investment in U.S. markets are foreigners. And if we do things that hurt foreign investment, and I think AMC and GME and these other meme stocks might be invested in more than 40% by foreigners, that hurts the future of American markets and investment in U.S. companies. So I don't think necessarily that these guys are going to cap the share price. They may. It's in their power, but I don't know if they will. I don't think they necessarily will. Gen Z Trader asks, do you see institutional buying into a stock as a good thing, even though they can essentially lend their shares to hedge funds? I do see it as a good thing, because what they are doing right now is that they're betting that the economy, the market's going to go south. These guys are going to be forced to cover, and they're going to make a fortune off this stuff. And they may be able to lend them out, but right now, are they buying legit shares, or are they buying a whole bunch of synthetics? Like, we hold a whole bunch of synthetics in our account. You can't lend out a synthetic share. So if you have, if you're going out buying GameStop shares by the millions right now, what are the odds you're getting actual legit shares versus getting a whole bunch of synthetic shares? I don't think that they've got enough real shares in their accounts that they can lend out and anymore. I just don't think I think they're just buying the same amount of synthetic shares that we're buying right now. I talked about a couple months ago about, hey, Bank of America is buying GME, and a bunch of people were like, you liar, you're full of crap. Well, 13Fs got filed today. Bank of America bought 200,000 GME shares. Why? Because I think they see that short hedge funds who have borrowed from them are so underwater on these stocks, they may as well hedge their bets and buy a whole bunch of them to have on hand. Because then they can at least sell them for a huge profit, and it'll be a wash when they're supposed, or at least they can hand them over and cover short positions. You may as well be on the other side of it. If you see that all your hedge funds that are trading under you have made some poor decisions regarding these stocks, you may as well buy a whole bunch of them and make it a neutral event in any case. So I think these big institutions buying in are them either covering their bases or betting that this sucker is going to go bonkers. Yeah. Let's see here. What other questions we got? I can go for a little bit longer. It's a Friday, so why not? Tuesday next week, I'm going to do another charity show on Tuesday. I forgot to do one earlier in the month. My Tuesdays were a little busy, but this coming Tuesday, I'm going to do a charity show. And so whatever's sent super chat wise will go to a charity. I haven't decided. I've got a few charities in mind, but I haven't decided what the ultimate charity will be. But stay tuned for next Tuesday. It will be a charity show like we did back in July. Okay. Tensai, Houston, why do you insist on selling your first share at 100,000? What makes you so sure that 100K will be achieved? Why not 1,000 or 10,000? I think at 1,000, retail will still be buying the stock. At 10,000, I think it will jump from 10,000 to 100,000 in no time when it gets that high. If it's at 10,000 bucks, it might as well be 100,000 bucks. 100,000 bucks, it might as well be $1 million bucks. My plan is to sell that first share at 100,000 because doing my math, I'll show you guys in the calculator here. Scene, bring up calculator, turn off Chrome. All right, so clear. So if I sell my first share at $100,000, right, and I sell my second share for 50 cents more than that, for 50% more than that, it goes for 150. The third share goes for 225, fourth share for 337, fifth share for 506, sixth share for 759, and seventh share for 1.1 million. Eighth share for 1.7, ninth share for 2.5, and it allows me to climb up this ladder, and within 10 shares, I'm selling them for $3 or $4 million a share, limit order wise. And because most brokers set the limit order to only 50% the current market price, it allows me to, when I sell a share, to set the next share at 50%. When I sell a share, set the next share at 50%, and I can climb that ladder. And let's say it climbs and climbs and climbs and climbs, and by my 13th share or whatever, I'm at almost $13 million a share. Let's say that's close to the peak. Then I will have guaranteed I've sold a share close to that peak. If it goes higher than that, I can still set a limit order for higher than that. I think Rocky Outcrop was calculating that the peak would be somewhere around 19 to 20 million. So, my 14th share is 20 million bucks. Cool. I still have a bunch more to go. And it gives me the opportunity to keep climbing that ladder and get a whole bunch of shares into the peak. And if all of a sudden the buy pressure disappears or is about to disappear because the volume has gotten to, 1.5 billion shares at these bonkers prices, then it gives me the opportunity to just take what I have left and dump it at market price for whatever's there. And, all I need to do is when I get into 7th share land, I can retire. I'm happy. Anything on top of that is just icing on the cake, right? If I sell shares for the millions and millions of dollars, those are just bonuses at this point. I want to retire, and I don't want to miss the opportunity to retire. So that's my exit strategy. And anything beyond that, I'll have shares still in reserve that I can use to get that bonkers stupid money where all of a sudden I'm living inside of like a base in a volcano, tying James Bond to beds and pointing lasers at them. So that opportunity exists. And those folks who have thousands and thousands and thousands of shares, because they were smarter than me and they bought a whole bunch in May of last year, it's going to be harder for them to do this, to sell one share at a time, because they just have so many. And they might just, you have 2,000 shares and the price gets to $10,000. You're like, well, that's $20 million. Dump. Because you're not only retired, but you're now, living in a private yacht with supermodels. You're happy. I don't have that luxury because I don't have that many shares. I was not a wise, aware person who got in that early. So that's why I'm starting my plan of selling at $100,000 a share and then working 50% up a time from when we go from there. Okay. Rocky Outcrop Collab 2.0. I would love, Rocky's such a wonderful person. I would love to do another one with him. I am doing a show. I don't know if it's going to be recorded or live, but I'm going to go on Hunter Jackson. It's going to be with Trade Spotting with Rocky's brother Jamie and Boss Blunts. And we're doing a show on Sunday. We're recording it at 1 o'clock Pacific time. And but I don't know if it's live. I'll have to ask Hunter if he's going to do it live or if it's going to be recorded and he'll post it later. But I'm doing another collab with those folks. It'd be great to meet Boss Blunts. I haven't met him yet. We've interacted online, but we haven't actually had a face-to-face yet. He seems like a wonderful dude as well. Barry O, which state you had to choose one state in the U.S. for retirement? I like Washington. I like where I am in Seattle. I love it here. I've lived in Canada. I lived in Japan. I've lived in Hawaii. I've lived in Oregon. Lived in California. Lived in New Jersey. Lived in Austria. I've been to a bunch of other places. I would probably travel a ton. Monkey Butt would have to get herself a doggy passport because my idea of retirement is just seeing everywhere in the world I can possibly go and experiencing as much as I can. But I probably would keep a home base here in Washington. I love it here. Every time I come back, I'm like, oh, it's so green and wonderful. It makes sense. I love having the mountains and the water, and I just wish the water temperature was a little warmer. But I like living out here. This feels like home to me. So yeah. Okay. Let's look for some more questions in the chat here. All right, that was Tensai's question. Tensai also asking, could BABA trigger the MOASS via SoftBank's exposure to them? BABA is dropping. This must be hurting SoftBank a lot. Yeah, I noticed that Alibaba has just been like every pre-market, we see the banks and some blue chips take a big drop right at the first few minutes of the pre-market. Alibaba is just wonk like every single time. I don't quite understand how Alibaba makes their money. I purchased equipment through Alibaba, and what ends up happening is I contact the manufacturer of something and then say, hey, contact me on WhatsApp or whatever. And so I contact them there, and then they just send me the bill through another means. And I don't actually purchase things through Alibaba. I'll end up purchasing them, directly from the manufacturer. And that hurts Alibaba's bottom line. They need to figure out a way to keep that from happening. And there's a lot of scammers. There are tons of scammers on Alibaba. About probably half the people you interact with on Alibaba are scammers who are just looking to take, get some sort of wire transfer out of you and then never deliver a product. Oh, it takes 5 weeks to ship it to you. By the time 5 weeks have gone by, they disappeared with your money and are starting a new scam. So, it's a company that's got some things to figure out and to deal with their scammers and to figure out how to actually get revenue out of sales. Amazon does it because you just order right through their website and done. But so much of Alibaba is these weird negotiations. So like, oh, you can buy this thing for between these prices if you buy this many, but then there's actually no way to purchase on the website. You got to contact and get a quote. And by the time you contact and get a quote, they're telling you to, let's just do it over email. And you can buy directly from us and take the Alibaba out of there. So they've got some work to do on that in that regard. Their Alibaba Express is much better. It's kind of like Wish, and you can just purchase right on the app, and it'll send you things. Like I buy power tools and stuff through Alibaba Express because I can get a drill press for $50 that would be $500 at Home Depot. It just doesn't have the name brand label on it. Like, I don't care. As long as it's a 3/4 horsepower drill press, what do I care? I will wait 5 weeks for it to ship from China. And that's just, I get a lot of power tools that way. So my wood shop is just outfitted with that stuff. Like I have a 40-inch lathe. I can lathe my own baseball bats because it was like $110 in Alibaba when the same lathe was like $5,000 from a hardware store. Like, of course I'm going to buy it direct from some factory in China if I can get a 40-inch lathe for that much, rather than buying a $5,000 one. I don't have the $5,000 to buy a lathe, so I will pay the $100 for this no-name one that may shatter apart and kill me at some point. We'll find out. That's the gamble, right? C-Tuba, T212 wanted their customers to enable lending. Why would they push for that if none of their customers own nothing but synthetics? Yeah. Well, T12, I believe, they probably saw the writing on the wall and were like, those shares are already synthetics to begin with. So whatever legit shares they have, we may as well lend them out. Because that's another way for them to make their money. They make money through payment for order flow or whatever. I'm not sure because they're British. I'm not sure if they do payment for order flow. But to get these commission-free trades, they have to make their money somehow. And so they want you to turn on lending. And they want to be able to lend out your shares and at least get fees off every share you buy. So that's why they want you to do that, is that's how they make their income. Okay. Nick Sexton, Houston, how long do you think it will be before the internet provides legally recognized citizenship? I don't know if that'll ever happen. I mean, there has to be some sort of thing that's like, you are human, you live on Earth, you have certain rights. Because we are coming increasingly a more global community, and it is weird if you think about it. Like, you look at Earth, and we're going to go back to the old Google Earth here. You look at Earth, and come on, screen. And when you get far enough out, you get far enough away from Earth, you can't see borders. You don't see borders. You don't even really see river systems. Humans are just inhabiting this little ball that floats out in space, and all the history that's ever occurred has happened on this little ball. Everything we've ever known, loved, cherished, hated, any evil, compassion, all of it has been on this little blue dot out in the middle of space. And we are pretty much alone out here in this void. And we need to have some sort of coming together moment where we recognize that this is the only planet we have, and we need to live in some sort of harmony with it. Now, will we get to the point where we just live in a virtual world so much that we just plug our brains into it and put a feeding tube in our arms and just go from there and just experience things kind of like Matrix style? Maybe. There's lots of video game addicts out there. I know plenty of them. That's all they do. They lose relationships and their health suffers, and they just play video games constantly, and they can't escape it. So I can see a world where I'm talking about Red Dwarf. There's a book called Better Than Life about this game that plugs into your brain, and people get addicted to it, and they just live in this fantasy world in their brain until they starve to death. So maybe we'll see some sort of internet citizenship in these virtual worlds. I do think, kind of Watchmen style thesis that we may need some sort of outside event, whether it's alien invasion or whatever, to kind of bring humanity together under one banner eventually. Until then, we're still going to have lots of factions and fighting and wars and everything else. I mean, the thing that made Yugoslavia so successful was that a whole bunch of ethnic groups who hate each other's guts all hated Tito. And so that united them, right? They all had a common enemy. And when Tito and Yugoslavia fell apart, all of a sudden they turned all their hatred on each other. So sometimes you need like that common enemy to unite everybody. It's kind of like that asshole at work that no one likes. Everyone can unite around bad-mouthing the asshole at work that nobody likes, because that's your common thread. That's what unites and binds you. That's kind of like the micro scale. So come on, alien invasion, bring us humans together, and unite us under a common cause. Tough Gnarl, what are your thoughts on the Tesla bot? I only saw the headlines. I have not seen what else they're offering. I just saw a brief headline right before I came on air that Elon announced that Tesla is making an Android. I mean, maybe they're getting into that Boston robotics space / Japanese pleasure bot world. We'll see. I do think it's hilarious that there's always warnings coming out from computer science and futurists saying, be warned of your sex robot getting hacked and killing you in the future. Because let's face it, that's what humans are going to do with them. Humans will just bone anything they want. And that's going to be a large chunk of the future. And Rulnick says, weird price action on Sears holding today. Higher volume, lower price for a while. Do you think it will go to zero? If it does, will there still be a dividend? Yes. Your ability to buy Sears holding is going to vanish on, I think it's September 3rd. You will no longer be able to purchase Sears stock. So the price will essentially go to zero. Now you will have the ability to sell it. And my guess is the only people who will be able to buy it will be institutions at that point. But the retail investor will not be able to buy. They'll only be able to sell. September 27th? Somebody posted the link in the last live stream, is when there's an omnibus hearing about the Sears bankruptcy. So we may get some sort of ruling coming out of that about, what Sears owes and how much assets they have to sell off to pay off that stuff. And whatever's left over will probably go to the holders of Sears stock. Now, that stock may see a huge jump when there's a ruling about how much the special dividend would be, because Sears has to sell off all these assets. And because we know that there's got to be hundreds of millions, if not billions, of naked shares of Sears out there. And that's one of the reasons why that price got dropped down to nothing. And so we might get some squeeze on it, as well as a big hefty dividend. That's what I'm waiting for. I bought it as a complete morbid fascination. Get it got convinced me, and I was like, yeah, I'll throw a few $100 at it, buy a few thousand shares, and see what happens. Why not? What's the worst can happen is that I'll lose a few $100. Oh well. Yeah, I think we'll get some more Sears news at the end of September or beginning of October as to what those bankruptcy hearings are having to tell us. Yeah. Tensai also asks, Houston, do you think shape-shifting aliens are among us? Obama, Zuckerberg. There are a weird group of rich billionaire that don't blink. That really weirds me out. Ken Griffin's one of them. That dude doesn't blink. Steve Forbes doesn't blink. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't blink. Like Mark Zuckerberg 10 years ago seemed much more like a human being, and now he's more like a weird, I don't know, robot man who doesn't blink and has terrible bangs. I mean, that haircut Mark Zuckerberg has, the worst. I cut my own hair. I've been cutting my own hair for 20 years. My hair looks fantastic. I don't know what butcher Mark Zuckerberg goes to, but my guess is it's his mom still giving him the same haircut he got when he was 3. Close your eyes. I'm just going to cut across, put the bowl on your head. Siatuba, human extinction via robotics because neckbeards and jocks alike will get addicted to their bots. Yeah, I mean, we already have a problem. Procreation, as a large part in first world nations, is dropping because people can't afford to start families, right? They have no net worth. They've got huge amounts of debt. Homes are too expensive. They're stuck living with family longer because everything's just so expensive. School debt, you name it. Plus, got internet porn. They spend their time, beating off to what's the name of that? Pornhub, and playing video games. They're not out there meeting. They're not out there, doing normal social things. We've got COVID also hurting the social aspect. We've got COVID infections causing lots of erectile dysfunction and killing off the glands and the nards that produce sperm. So we may have a drop in fertility simply because dudes cooked their balls when they got COVID. So that's something to look forward to. And they can't get it up anymore. There's like 1 in 5 guys that got COVID are having a hard time, getting it hard. So we've got that to look forward to. And then we got these robots coming along. I mean, Japan has essentially a negative birth rate. Their population is shrinking like crazy, and they are robot video game capital of the world. So, maybe that's the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the world. So they're the first early adopters of this stuff. Okay. Stock Stalker. Do you think Bed Bath & Beyond will MOASS? I think they're part of that meme stock alliance. They popped when everything else did on January 28th. I think it's very likely that they'll get a squeeze in there. Okay, so it's 4:15. I'm gonna go for another 15 minutes here, and then I've got to actually feed myself for the day. I've run around like a chicken with my head cut off. I hadn't had a chance. So give me 15 more minutes. Let's see what kind of questions. Oh yeah, what about that news about OnlyFans? They're getting rid of their hardcore content to entice investors. They are just shooting themselves in the foot. That's their entire business model. And they make $400 million a year in revenue off of their current business model because they get 20% of all subscriptions, right? So, they're getting rid of the reason why people subscribe to entice investors. But investors aren't going to come if there's no customers. What's their entire business model? It's like what happened to Tumblr. Tumblr got rid of their naughty content, and no one uses Tumblr anymore. Let's face it, 90% of the internet profit is dirty. I had a friend that he's a computer scientist, and he specializes in managing large networks. And he's looking for new jobs, and he, on Monster or whatever he's using at the time, and he got this company recruit him. They're like, "Hey, come to our company. We have this huge network. We're one of the largest computer networks in the entire world." Blah 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 blah. And he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" They're like, "Just come interview with us." And so he shows up to this 10-story building in Bellevue, just an address, no name. They did most of the cam sites for girls and boys around the world, and they had this gigantic computer network for hosting all of these cam sites, hundreds of thousands of cam performers, and there's like no name for this, like, you know, like Johnson Holdings or whatever. I don't know what they call themselves. And so he interviews, and his job would be managing this network for all these off-site locations for all these cams. And, you know, the amount of money this company brings in is just ridiculous. And it is just straight profit. Like their operating costs are tiny. They just take, you know, the 20% piece of what our subscribers are paying for those cams. And it's absolutely bonkers. Like 90% of the money exchanged on the internet isn't going through Amazon and other online retailers. It's going through porn. Porn is huge money on the internet. So OnlyFans is doing the stupidest thing they could possibly do. I mean, they just need to get one of those hedge funds, the sin funds that only invest in like porn, cigarettes, guns, and alcohol, to invest in their site, and they would have plenty of money. Yeah. Okay. C4M320N super chats. I didn't die in Utah Slot Canyon. Woohoo! Can you tell me what the F is going on with a cool rock I found? DM'd you a pic on Twitter. Oh, I'll have to... do I have my phone with me? I do have my phone with me. Let's see what's going on with CM, his rock here. Da-da-da. Cam, Colorado. Oh, here we go. This is an aggregate. All right, so if you guys can see... Oh, wait, I can bring up Twitter on here. Duh. One sec. You don't need to see what's on my phone. Chrome. Oops. Take off Google Earth. I need like one button that just does this stuff. Apparently I can do that. Messages. There's Cam, Colorado. Okay, there we go. So this is the rock you sent me. This looks like an aggregate of sorts. So rocks break apart, and they break, and then sometimes they get buried with landslides or other stuff, and then between the rocks you'll get some sort of cement that will form, and it will actually cook the rocks back together, and then what was a whole bunch of rocks becomes one big rock again. Let's see if we can find an aggregate that looks similar to this. This looks like an aggregate, unless there might be another geologist more familiar in Utah that can tell me. Utah aggregate stone. Images. Oh, sorry, conglomerate. I'm using aggregate. I mean conglomerate. Conglomerate. Here's some conglomerates. These ones are like more like ones you might find here in Washington. Like all the exposed bedrock where I live is conglomerates made of like rocks that are found on the seashore that get cooked back together. Here's some more sharper ones that are probably from further up a mountain. Let's see here. What other ones we got? Don't quite have any that look quite like the one you showed in the picture. No, these are more gravelly. Let's see here. That one again is more gravelly. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not a conglomerate. Looks like one, but it's more. That's more uniform. Maybe it's a different type of sandstone. I'm not realizing. I'm gonna talk to my Utah geology friend, Dr. Hins, and see what she says. She might have better information for me. I thought it was a conglomerate, but these are not quite looking like what you're showing me there. That one's cool. It's got like jasper and stuff in it. That's a cool one. That's polished. That's awesome. I'll have to see what they got going for me. So Colorado C4M. I will ask my geology friend, is much more familiar with Utah, and I'll see what she tells me what it is, and then I'll get back to you. All right, cool. All right. Will Elon colonize Mars? Yeah, and also die there, probably pretty soon after he colonizes. Spend a couple $100 billion to go die of perchlorate poisoning on the surface of Mars. That's going to be Elon's future. If he survives, I'm going to be really surprised. He needs to remember to drink some water. Yeah, I keep forgetting. My throat's a little scratchy still too. We keep like just smoke comes in for a day, then it blows out, and I become scratchy throat man. Houston, have you heard of mass psychosis? It's from CT Moon. Yeah, it's believed to have happened in the past. Dancing mania. That's what it was. Dancing. Oops, got to turn on the boop. There we go. Dancing mania was a weird plague that happened between the 14th and 17th century. They don't know if there's actually was a disease or if it was weird mass psychosis, but like whatever people acted infected, they just basically danced themselves to death, just dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing. They had a great time, and then they died from starvation and whatever else happened because they kept dancing. There's all sorts of theories from religious cults leading people to dance themselves and stress themselves to death. But there's also speculated there's like a mass psychological illness, so basically just mass psychosis. Yeah, so dancing mania is a really weird one. And for something that happened fairly recently and within like our written record, 14th to 17th centuries, we had a lot of observers writing stuff down, and we have no idea what it was at all. But it seemed to sweep through towns and villages, and then a whole bunch of people would be like dance, 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 and then they would die from their dancing because they danced too much. I don't know how many like actually recovered and stopped dancing. Oh, it happened in the early 7th century. Crazy. It reappeared multiple times throughout the 17th century. Interesting. Huh. Weird. Such a weird thing. I read up on dancing mania. It's crazy. Interesting. Yeah. So apparently there is mass psychosis that can happen. So yeah. Tensai also asked, Houston, is there any creature that is more awesome than a tardigrade? What is your favorite creature? Oh man, I can go on and on about like mantis shrimp. Those things are friggin' badass. I mean, I'm sure if you've been on the internet, you've read about mantis shrimp, but they're these crazy, weird little psychedelic colored shrimp, and they look kind of like praying mantis. They have these two little fists, and the way that their muscle tissue can coil and punch allows them to accelerate the water in front of their punch, superheat it to plasma, and it essentially kills anything they punch. The tiny little things. And they can't really design a fish tank that can hold them because they can punch the fish tank and shatter the glass. It superheats the water in front of the punch to the surface temperature of the sun. We're talking like thousands of degrees. So when you get punched one of these things, you get flash cooked as well, and then they eat you. But they also have 16 rods and cones in their eyes. Humans have 3, so we can see the visible light spectrum. There are some creatures that have 4. Ants, I think, have 4. They can see ultraviolet. Crows can see into like the ultraviolet as well. So like when you see a crow, I can't remember if it's ultraviolet or infrared. Crow under UV light. UV. There we go. So crows, we see a crow as just this black thing, and what crows see is they see all sorts of crazy markings. So they can identify other crows because there's certain special markings on them that are not visible to us in visible light. And so they don't see just a black crow. They see their buddy with his weird special markings because they can see the ultraviolet light coming off of them. Well, 16 rods and cones means that these mantis shrimp can see a huge array of the electromagnetic spectrum. They could probably see into radio. They could probably see into ultraviolet and beyond. And why they have that ability, I have no idea. But I would love to try and experience the world seeing what a mantis shrimp sees. There's probably so much more available to them. To give you a case in point, if we go to the Orion Nebula, we can see the Orion Nebula in different wavelengths here. Let's see a good image. Come on, give me a good comparison image. textbooks always have them. Why don't you show me the... don't just give me... All right. We'll do it, type it in differently. We'll do Orion Nebula, visible UV, infrared. Okay, here we go. So this is Orion Nebula. This is what, if you look through a telescope or take a picture with visible light, that's what you see. This is what you see when you look in infrared. So there's a whole bunch more stuff that is not visible to us that probably, you know, some, I don't know, Tuatara or something can look up in the sky and they see the sky completely different than we do. Here's another comparison. This is Lagoon Nebula, visible light here versus infrared there. Big difference in what materials are visible. Here we go. Oh, there's a whole bunch. Which one's this? This is Carina Nebula. So we've got visible light. Oh, sorry, visible light, infrared. So there's big differences. So we can have all sorts of, oops. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's probably infrared visible UV, maybe the other way around. So this is another image of the Orion Nebula, different wavelengths. So they can, I would love to be able to like look at space with my own eyes and have, I don't know, see weird things out there that we could only use scientific equipment to do. When we didn't even know most of the stuff existed, that most of these wavelengths of light existed until recent history. You know, was only in the invention of radar did we start to know that when Jupiter would rise up, there'd be all sorts of crazy sounds would happen and all these things. Jupiter's a big giant radio emitter. So we only discovered this stuff, a lot of this stuff, fairly recently, in the last 100 years or so. It's pretty bonkers. Christopher Sawchuk, is there a long whale versus short whale battle in the dark pools? Ooh, that's a good speculation. Here's the way I see it, is that long whales have cash, short whales do not. The short whales are so over leveraged, they have to figure out different ways to raise or borrow money right now. It's getting increasingly more difficult. So the short whales, I think, are depending upon things like Citadel Connect and these payment for order flow schemes to depress price. So they're doing as much as they can with that means. And I think if you got long whales, you know, we're starting to see, you know, these big institutions buy up meme stocks like GME and AMC and stuff. And, you know, they're taking these long positions. There may be a point in the near future where they kick this thing off big, where they all of a sudden, rather than doing this slowly over months, purchasing shares, they all of a sudden say, all right, I want to buy 1 million shares right now, 10 million shares right now. And they trigger a huge buy pressure all of a sudden, which just pumps the price. That would be probably the ultimate way for them to kick this thing off and destroy the short whales in the long run. But the long whales probably are buying through dark pools if you can get the price cheaper. Why not? Pale Hawaiian writes, Sea Like Manta Shrimp, download the Architecture of Radio app for iPhone. You see radio waves all around you, cell tower waves, etc. Ooh, okay. Excellent. That's a good idea. Architecture of Radio app. Let me, my books are in the way of my thing here. Architecture of Radio app. I don't have an iPhone, but I wonder if they have it for an Android. Architecture of Radio app. Awesome. Excellent. Yeah, I got a crazy app for my phone. So when I go visit my dad's house, when they're cooking dinner, we discovered that the dog all of a sudden started trembling whenever they're cooking dinner, and we couldn't figure out why. And they have the exact same oven and range as I do. And so I got this app for my phone that listens in wavelengths that are way beyond human hearing. And we discovered that their oven, when they would turn it on, created this high-pitched scream that we couldn't hear. So there's something in their oven that's going wrong. And whenever they turn it on to cook food, Humans can't hear it, but my dog like loses her shit and becomes terrified of the kitchen. And so the phone discovered that scream that was happening when they turned the oven on. It's pretty crazy, the technology we have now. Absolutely wild. Okay. All right, we're at 4:30. I'm going to have to get going here. Let's do one more question. One more good question. Pfizer is pumping after hours, someone says. News of FDA approving it Monday. Really? Interesting. I don't know if I'll have opportunity to buy any Pfizer at the moment. I might have missed my opportunity. Okay, one more question. One more good question. Let's see. That's the question. I gotta scroll back up far to somewhere where I totally missed because of super chats. That's Alibaba question. That's Alibaba question. Someone's saying about I should give mods phone numbers to avoid situations like this. There's some sort of problem that I don't know about. Goodness. I'll contact one of the mods here and see what's happening. All right. Give me one more good weird question, folks, and we'll try to end on that one. Tensai's got some good weird questions today. I'm loving it. Houston, who was superior military leader given the resources he had and the opponents he had to face? Hannibal, Alexander, or Caesar? Well, Alexander conquered more territory. Caesar surprised his opponents. Hannibal, while getting through Spain and across the Alps, finally got into Italy and didn't quite do so well. I'll go with Alexander, but I would say Genghis Khan is superior to all of them. Genghis Khan was able to utilize horses in a way no one else ever had, and basically blitzkrieged his way across the whole of Asia. And if he hadn't died, Kublai Khan and his cousins would have taken over, would have gotten into Cairo and Alexandria and taken over North Africa, and probably would have gotten through to Europe. I mean, they did face some opposition when they got to Europe because they didn't quite know how to do siege battles when they got to like Poland and stuff. But yeah, they just slaughtered, and 200,000 Mamluk soldiers, like these Turkish super soldiers that were guarding Cairo, managed to just barely defeat 20,000 like also ran Mongols, because Kublai Khan and others raced back to Mongolia because Genghis had died, and they wanted to all take over the thrones. They had their own little battle, and they just kind of like left some like dregs behind to try and take over Cairo. But if the full forces of Kublai Khan had been there, they would have taken over Cairo, and that would have been it. They would have had all of North Africa at that point. So yeah, excellent question. Okay. I'm doing that show on Sunday with Hunter Jackson, Trade Spotting, and Boss Blunts. So look forward to that. I have no idea if it's going to be live, so stay tuned. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. That was a nice little fun 2.5 hour show there. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'll do a normal show Monday. Tuesday I'm going to try and do another charity show. I got to figure out which charity I'm going to support there. And I want to thank you guys so much for joining me, and enjoy your weekend. I think things are going to get even weirder next week with SPY and otherwise, because we're still not going to hear anything about the debt ceiling out of anybody until they probably get back from their recess, their vacations. So there we go. All right, everyone. Take care of yourselves and others, and I'll see you